I want you to picture a scene. It's, a classic Saturday afternoon. You're in the backyard or maybe at the park, and you look over at your 3-year-old, and they are just face down in the dirt.
Oh, I know this scene.
I mean, literally cheek to the mud. They're pushing this plastic truck through a muddy patch, and they're making these incredibly aggressive engine noises.
Lots of grunting.
So much grunting, high-pitched revving, and, frankly, a surprising amount of spit flying everywhere. Now, be honest with me. To the naked eye, what is this?
That looks like a laundry crisis.
Exactly. It looks like a mess. It looks like chaos. It looks like something you're going to have to hose down later.
It does. But, we've been reading through a stack of research today, everything from early childhood instructional guides to curriculum frameworks, and they suggest something completely different. They suggest that if we put this muddy, noisy scene under a microscope, we're not looking at a mess. We're looking at physics. We're looking at engineering. And weirdly enough, we are looking at high-level emotional regulation.
See, that's where I get skeptical. Physics, really. Because it mostly looks like a kid just smashing a toy into a puddle.
It feels like a stretch, I know.
Yeah.
But it really is a masterclass in disguise.
Well, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are getting our hands dirty. We're looking at a topic that might seem incredibly specific, but it's actually a perfect case study for how children learn. We're talking about play-based learning through the lens of four-wheel driving.
It's a fascinating rabbit hole, and I think for a lot of parents it's going to be a bit of a relief to hear what we have to say.
But before we get the angry emails, and I know what you're thinking, we need to drop a massive disclaimer right here at the top.
A huge disclaimer. This is crucial framing. We are deeply diving into the educational value of vehicle play. We are not, under any circumstances, suggesting you teach your preschooler how to drive the family SUV.
Please do not put your toddler behind the wheel. I don't care how advanced their spatial awareness is.
Keep the keys in your pocket. This is
Yeah.
all about toy cars.
Yeah.
And secondly, and this is really important, this is not a curriculum for you to memorize. The sources we looked at use 4WD Play as a kind of gold standard example, but the principles apply to anything.
Right.
If your kid is obsessed with dinosaurs or ponies or setting up, these elaborate tea parties for their stuffed animals, the mechanics of learning we're about to discuss are exactly the same.
So our mission today is to take that obsession, that thing they just can't stop playing with, and show you the massive amount of learning that's happening just beneath the surface. And the best part, we promise that by the end of this, you'll have simple ways to join in that don't involve you being a teacher.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I do not have the energy to be a teacher on the weekends.
That's the key. We want to stop you from worrying that you aren't teaching enough and just start showing you how to enjoy the play, knowing it's doing the work for you.
So let's unpack the big idea first. The sources use this phrase, systems thinking. Now, to me, that sounds like something you learn in an MBA program or like a software engineering course. How does pushing a toy truck through sand qualify as systems thinking? It sounds like buzzword soup.
It does sound lofty, doesn't it? But think about what a system actually is. It's just a collection of parts that, interact with each other to produce some kind of result. In this case, the child isn't just moving an object, they're actually managing a whole system.
Okay, break that system down for me.
Well, you've got the vehicle, you've got the environment, the sand, the rocks, the mud, and you have the driver, the child, who has to use tools and planning to navigate that environment. And if one part changes, say the mud gets deeper, the whole system changes. The child has to adapt.
So it's not just vroom vroom, it's like input A changed, so I need to change output B.
Exactly. And the core philosophy here is interest-led learning. The research is crystal clear on this. Children learn best when they are deeply interested, when the learning is hands-on, and when it connects to real life. For a lot of kids, vehicles are that bridge.
Because they see them everywhere. They're loud, they're big.
They see them, they ride in them, they understand that they have power. The sources describe 4WD Play specifically as a rich example, because the definition they give is people using special vehicles, tools, and planning to move safely across different environments.
Planning to move safely. That actually implies a lot of forethought.
It does. You've got science, tech, math, English, and social-emotional learning all wrapped up in one bloody package. But here's the trap parents fall into. I call it the quiz show trap.
Oh, I am so guilty of this. You see them playing, and you feel this pressure to make it educational, so you turn into a game show host.
Right. You walk over, you see them holding the red truck, and what's the first thing you say?
I say, what color is the truck? Is it red? Can you say red? Or count the wheels for me. 1, 2, 3.
And the kid just looks at you like, I am trying to cross the Sahara Desert here. I do not have time for a census.
It kills the vibe immediately. I can literally feel them checking out.
It stops the play. Because you're interrupting their flow to test them on stuff they probably already know.
Mm.
Quizzing tests knowledge. It doesn't build new thinking. The sources all suggest this shift from quizzing to wondering.
Wondering.
Yeah. You're not the teacher checking their work. You're the sportscaster or the curious co-pilot.
I love the sportscaster idea, so I'm just narrating.
You're just narrating what you see, like a commentator. Oh, the truck is slowing down. Wow, the mud looks really deep there. The wheels are spinning. You don't need the answers. You just need to notice what's happening. That's where the reasoning skills start to build.
That feels so much easier. I don't need a lesson plan. I just need to have eyes.
Exactly. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the hidden curriculum in the sandbox. We've got a few segments, starting with science and math. But we're doing this without a single textbook in sight.
Okay, the sources claim this is physics and geology. Again, I'm just picturing a 3-year-old eating sand, so sell me on the physics part.
It's absolutely physics. When a child drives a toy car over different surfaces, they are exploring the properties of materials. It's not just dirt versus the clean floor. It's a sensory experiment about friction and resistance.
Give me an example of how a kid perceives that.
Well, think about the feedback the child gets through their hand. They push the car on the pavement. It goes fast, it's loud, it vibrates, that's low friction. Then they hit the sandbox.
It just stops dead.
Right. Sand is soft, the wheels sink, they have to push harder. That is a lesson in force and resistance. Then they hit the mud. Mud reduces friction, but it adds suction. Rocks are hard, they're slippery, you have to climb them.
So they're learning that different materials behave differently under the tires.
And they're learning the concept of traction. The sources really highlight traction as a key vocabulary word. It's the grip. And you can turn this into what the guides call a play invitation.
I love these play invitations. They're like little prompts to spark thinking, right? Not tests.
Exactly. They aren't lessons, they're invitations. So, play invitation number 1 is compare and contrast.
And how do we set that up without ruining the fun?
It's super simple. You take the same toy car, you ask your child to run it over a pillow,
Yeah.
one you just thrown on the floor, then run it over a wooden floor.
Okay, so the pillow is soft, unstable, wobbly. The floor is hard and fast.
And you just ask, which one was harder to drive on? Where did the wheels slip?
You're not teaching them the formula for friction coefficients.
No.
You're just getting them to notice cause and effect.
That is comparative scientific testing. You're building the scientific method, hypothesis, test, observation before they can even read.
That's wild. What about math? I feel like math is harder to see in pretend play unless you're just counting rocks, which we already said is the quiz trap.
Counting is the boring part of math. The sources emphasize spatial language. This is huge for early development and actually predicts mathematical ability later on. We're talking about prepositions and geometry.
So words like up, over, under.
Up, over, under, stuck, steep, narrow, wide. When a child navigates a truck through a garden bed, they're constantly calculating geometry. Will the truck fit between these two routes? Is this rock too steep?
That's estimation.
It is. And sequencing. First we check the track, then we drive, then we get stuck. That is mathematical logic. Logic is just a sequence of events. And here's play invitation number 2, the cushion track.
This sounds like something that would happen in my living room anyway, usually followed by me telling them to put the cushions back.
Right. Just lean into the chaos for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Use the couch cushions to build a track. Prop one up so it's a ramp. But here's the prompt you use. Is this too steep? Do you think the car will tip over?
You're asking them to predict the outcome.
Yes. And think about what that requires. They have to look at the angle, estimate the truck's center of gravity, and make a risk assessment. That is applied mathematics.
It's so much more dynamic than a worksheet where you just circle the triangle.
So much more. But speaking of risk and things going wrong, this leads us to what I think is the most interesting part of all the research, the stuck moment.
I was really struck by this in the reading, because usually when a toy gets stuck or a tower falls down or the wheel pops off, that is the cue for a meltdown.
This is the crisis point.
And as a parent, my instinct is just to swoop in. Oh, let me fix that for you. Here's the truck. Keep playing. I want to avoid the tears. I want to keep the peace.
Of course. We all want to be the hero. But the source material calls this concept stuck on purpose. In 4WD play, getting stuck isn't a failure. It is the start of the real game. If you never get stuck, you aren't really four-wheel driving. You're just driving on a highway.
That's a great reframe. The whole point is the recovery.
This is pure social emotional learning, or SEL. When that toy bogs down in the mud, the child feels that spike of frustration. If we fix it immediately, we rob them of the chance to process that feeling.
So instead of fixing it,
Or two,
we lean into the disaster.
you model the calm. You act as their external brain. Invitation number 3 is recovery play. You could intentionally bury the wheel in the sand or wedge it between two rocks.
You sabotage them? That seems a little cruel.
In a playful way. Or just wait until they get stuck naturally, which will happen, and then you use the parent line. You say, oh no, it's stuck. That looks tricky. What's our plan?
What's our plan? That's powerful. It shifts from an emotional reaction to, like, executive function.
Precisely. You are teaching them. We stand back, we wait, we think. It mirrors the engineering design cycle. Identify the problem. I'm stuck. Choose a tool. Test the solution. Did it work? No. Iterate. Try again.
That is a life skill. That is way bigger than toy trucks. That's resilience training.
It is. And it transitions perfectly into the next area, which is engineering. Because if we are going to get unstuck, we're going to need tools.
The source material here got surprisingly technical, which I kind of loved. The terminology is fantastic.
Kids love real words. This is another tip from the guides. Don't dumb it down. Don't call it a rope, call it a winch. The sources talk about snorkels, bull bars, recovery tracks.
Wait, back up. A snorkel on a car. My kid knows what a snorkel is for swimming. Why does a car need a snorkel?
Yeah, same concept, actually. It's a pipe that goes up the side of the windshield so the engine can breathe when you drive through deep water. If you tell a 3-year-old that a car needs to breathe just like a person, they will never forget it.
That connects it to biology in a weird way. And
Yeah.
Max Tracks, I saw this in the notes.
Max tracks. Yeah, if you talk to anyone who actually does off-roading, they know these. They're these bright orange, like waffle board things. You shove them under the tires to get traction when you're bogged down in sand.
Oh, I've seen those strapped to the top of Jeeps. I always wondered what those were.
Right. Now, here is the engineering challenge. You don't need to go out and buy a tiny $50 plastic accessory kit. This leads to play invitation number 4, DIY engineering.
Which is?
Use the recycling bin, cardboard, wood offcuts, old scraps of carpet.
So the car's stuck in the mud or, the carpet, and you ask, what could we put under the tire to give it some grip?
And you let them figure out that the cardboard acts like the Max Tracks. They are solving a real mechanical problem. They have to wedge it in, apply power, and see if the friction increases.
And there's a safety component here too, right? Even though it's just play.
Absolutely. The expert in me loves this part. We model safety even with toys. We say things like, adults use the tools, or we stand back when we're pulling so the rope doesn't snap.
And the mantra, slow is safe.
Slow is safe, fast breaks things.
That is a mantra every parent of a toddler needs tattooed on their forehead.
It applies to the driving, and it applies to the learning. If you rush the child to the answer, you break the learning.
I like that. So we've covered science, math, engineering, SEL. What about English? How does driving a truck build literacy? Surely that requires, books.
The books definitely help, but vocabulary is the foundation of literacy. And 4WD play is what we'd call a rich language environment. We've already used words like traction, recovery, unstable, friction, vehicle, environment. These are big, juicy words.
They aren't baby words.
No. And kids soak them up because they're useful words in the context of their game. If you need traction to get out of the hole, you will learn the word traction. But beyond vocabulary, it's about the story.
The narrative structure.
Storytelling is a precursor to reading and writing. A huge part of literacy is just being able to retell a sequence of events in the right order.
So play invitation number 5 isn't a physical activity, it's a conversation.
Yes, the prompt is simply, tell me how you got the car out of that mud hole.
And then they have to narrate it back. First I got the winch, then I pulled, then it popped out.
That is narrative structure. Beginning, middle, end. Conflict and resolution. That is the structure of every single novel they will ever read. And you can take it a step further with visual literacy.
This is the map-making part of the notes, right?
Exactly. Have the child draw a squiggle on a piece of paper. Here is the start, here is the tricky rock, here is camp.
My 3-year-old can't write, though. It's just going to be a squiggle.
And that's perfect, because that squiggle is a symbol. It represents a real-world object that is exactly what the letter A is. It's a squiggle that means something. Drawing a track is practicing the abstract thinking required for writing.
It's amazing how connected it all is. Okay, we have one more section in our curriculum outline, HASIS Humanities and Social Sciences. This feels like the ethical side of things.
This is the care for land aspect. The sources are really clear that 4WDing isn't just about conquering nature and smashing over bushes. It's about respecting the environment.
So we are not encouraging them to tear up the garden bed.
Definitely not. The lesson is about staying on tracks to protect plants and animals, taking your rubbish home with you. It's about stewardship.
And understanding roles, too, like who uses these vehicles.
Right. Rangers, farmers, rescue workers, people who use tools to help others and care for the land.
I like play invitation number 6. Track protection. You pretend there's a rare plant, maybe just a leaf you found, and the whole game is that you have to drive around it.
Adds a constraint to the play. How do we get past this without crushing the leaf? It builds empathy for the environment. It transforms the child from a destroyer into a protector.
So let's zoom out. We've covered a lot of ground, pun intended. We've turned a muddy backyard session into a full curriculum. Physics, math, SEL, engineering, literacy, and even ethics.
But, and this is so vital, we haven't done a single worksheet.
That's the missing piece the sources talk about. To turn this play into school readiness, you don't need a workbook.
You need one shared book about vehicles or deserts, one drawing of a track, and maybe a conversation about what worked. That's it.
It feels like a permission slip for parents. Because, frankly, I'm tired. I don't want to set up some complex activity.
You don't have to. You don't need to be an expert in off-roading. You don't need to know how a differential gear works. You just need to be an expert in noticing.
Noticing what they're doing and just asking a question.
And remember, if you're sitting there thinking, my kid hates cars, they only love ponies, or they only love dolls, the rules are exactly the same.
How does this apply to ponies?
Think about it. Surfaces. Is the pony walking on soft grass or hard rocks? That's physics. Karen, how do we brush the pony? That's tools. Planning. Where's the pony going? That's geography. The interest is just the vehicle for the thinking.
The thinking skills are transferable. That's the big takeaway.
Exactly. You follow their interest, and you just add the thinking.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought, a provocation to try this week. The next time you see your child deep in play and things go wrong, the tower falls, the car gets stuck, the doll's dress won't fit, resist that urge to fix it.
Don't jump in. Sit on your hands if you have to.
Just say, that looks tricky. What's your plan? And then just see where they take you.
You might be surprised by the engineering solution they come up with. Or, you might just get a very messy high five. And both are good.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep playing, and we'll see you next time.
Drive safely.